So then if you spot me coming around that corner, you're just gonna walk out on us with not say goodbye?
That's the discipline. It's that or we both better go do something else now.
I don't know how to do anything else.
Neither do I.
Much more to me.
Neither do I.
One thing I do know, son, and that is you are here for a reason.
All those powers that I couldn't even see.
Hey everyone, welcome to No Intermissions, the double feature podcast where we pair the unpairable and link the unlinkable. Two unlikely movies are picked at complete random, and at the end of every back-to-back discussion, no matter how hard it may be, my guest and myself will find the connecting thematic tissue, whether it be from genre, aesthetic, motive, or style. As always, I'm your host, Jack Siddle. And with me, a very special guest I've got joining with me today. You can find this gentleman over on Letterboxd and Twitter, where he's making some of the best movie takes out. Very popular on both of those. It's Mr. Balta.
That is very generous. That is
oh no,
it's
very correct. It's very correct.
No, man, there's a lot of people that would disagree with that, probably. But I have some very questionable reviews up on Letterboxd. But aside from that, thank you for having me here, man. I'm incredibly excited to be a part of this. This is so fucking cool. I don't know if we can swear.
Oh,
sorry,
go, dude,
but,
go for it. Go for it. Absolutely.
I just can't hold it in, really. I'm really glad to be here. And yeah, man, this is just super excited for me. Super, super exciting.
Oh, dude, likewise. The honor is mine. I'm so grateful that you decided to come on and join me for this. This is very special for me. So thank you so much.
No, my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
No, absolutely, man. But the reason we're here, obviously, No Intermissions is my new podcast where we sort of pair two unlikely movies together and make we go out of our way to make the most incontangible sort of double feature we possibly can. So, Balta, what two movies have we paired today?
We've paired the best movie of all time, Michael Mann's Heat.
Very welcome, me. Very welcome, me.
And 1978, if I'm not mistaken, Superman by Richard Donner, directed by Richard Donner.
So here, you've heard it here first. Hell yeah. This is the first episode. So we've done Heat from 1995 and pairing it with Superman from 1978. And obviously, at the end of the episode here, it'll be Balta and I's job. We'll probably be tearing our hair out, or it might be extremely easy on why.
Who knows?
Yes, who knows? We'll have to wait. But
Stay tuned.
Yes.
You have to listen to it.
This might actually be a sort of cohesive, appropriate double feature. But with that, I think should we just jump straight into it? No time to waste, man. Let's do it.
I'm itching to talk about Heat.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. So we're talking Heat from 1995. Stick around.
He's here. I can feel it.
You search for the scent of your prey, and then you hunt them down. That's the only thing you're committed to.
It keeps me sharp, on the edge, where I gotta be.
You want to be making moves on the street? Allow nothing to be in your life that you cannot walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you spot the heat around the corner.
No, my life's a disaster zone because I spend all my time chasing guys like you around the block.
I do what I do best. I take scores. You do what you do best, trying to stop guys like me.
You've been walking through our life dead.
All I am is what I'm going after.
Here we are, man. So, Heat is the 1995 American crime film with an absolute onslaught of an ensemble cast led by Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, Jon Voight, Tom Sizemore, among many, many others. Like, that doesn't even scratch the surface. You know, we got Amy Brenneman, Ashley Judd, Diane Venora. Who else? We've got Danny Trejo's in there.
Danny Trejo's in it.
Yeah, Wes Studi. Even Hank Azari's in there for like 10 to 15 minutes. And despite such his short screen time, gets like probably one of the most infamous scenes in film history, which is fantastic. And of
Just
course
insane cast.
yes, insane loaded cast, and of course is directed by Michael Mann.
Woo!
Yeah, the king. Now, I want to ask you this before we actually start talking about Heat itself. What's your relationship with Mann? Like, how many are we big on Michael Mann? Because for me personally, favorite director of all time.
Huge. Dude, that's such a good take. I was honestly, he's definitely in my top 3 or even 2, I'd say. It's
Yeah.
just it's a big neck to neck with Fincher for me
Uh-huh.
as favorite
Yep.
director.
Mhm.
But with Mann, I love Mann. Well, my introduction to Mann, if I'm not mistaken, was Heat itself.
Oh,
It was my
perfect.
first Mann. It was actually not long ago. I think it was last year when I was like starting to get into my like little cinephile era. I was like, okay, let's watch a couple movies. This is
Right.
kind of fun. And I watched Heat, and I was okay, like I heard very good stuff about this. The cast is absolutely insane.
Oh, it's
So
stacked.
let's give it a shot. Let's check out this Michael Mann guy.
Yeah.
And just whew, insane. I was like, holy shit, this guy has it figured out. This guy has the fucking sauce. He's got it, man. This Mann guy, and just incredible movie. So after that, I started watching a couple other of Mann movies. I started doing my homework.
Mhm.
I recently watched Thief,
Mhm.
his directorial debut. If I'm not
Another
mistaken.
masterpiece.
Another absolute banger too.
Yep.
What else? Collateral. Oh, dude, Balta all timer. Collateral is so
Yeah,
good.
Collateral's
But,
phenomenal.
But also, and well, I'm still missing out on a lot of them. But just from those like 3 movies,
Yep.
he's already like up top on the ranking. Like he's just so insane. He especially means so much to me. That
Yeah.
movie is so good that just skyrocketed to the top of my list, honestly.
Oh yeah. Well, you couldn't have said it better yourself. Like, I mean, this is it. Like, Mann is one of the few filmmakers who has such like a concrete style that has just lasted from
Absolutely.
top to bottom throughout his entire career. He's always dealing with the same sort of logistics, the same sort of thematics, same emotions, even down to the detail where, like, despite a lot of the time, they may have different names, different actors, most of his characters remain completely the same. Like, they've all got the same sort of ideology. It's really, really
Exactly.
interesting.
Yeah.
Like you said, like, even to sort of the second half of his career, where he's more working into the 2000 era, where he was doing stuff like Collateral, which is like, for anyone who hasn't seen, Collateral is like the two-hander run all night thriller between like a cab driver and an assassin, and like
Amazing movie.
yeah, it's an amazing
Go
movie.
watch it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And even like still within the later career, like his Collaterals, his Miami Vices, that sort of thing, you can still see a lot of like his earlier stuff, like your Manhunters, your Thieves, your Heats. It's all there. So he's a really idiosyncratic filmmaker that I don't know, it's so different, but it's so, I want to say powerful, that he's all these sort of same thematics have lasted throughout every single one of his movies.
Yeah. It's the man touch. I call it the man touch.
The man
just
touch. You've heard it here
incredible.
first. Yes, that's it.
Don't coin that, but it's so good.
But yeah, so Heat was your first Michael Mann movie that you saw. Now, how long ago, sorry, did you say you saw it? When you first watched it?
How long what, sorry?
How
When
long?
I first watched it?
Yeah.
Last year. I think it was early last year, I think
Yeah.
it was, and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
It's really funny because I watched it. I still feel bad about this to this day, but I watched it on my phone out of all places.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
with like headphones on.
Yeah.
And I finished it. I was like, Jesus, what I would give to see that on the big screen. Like what people must have felt watching that movie back then.
Yeah.
On the screen. Like,
Yeah.
dude, oh my God.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was lucky enough to catch it in theaters last year, and we will get down to the sort of tactical logistics of the filmmaking itself. But hearing the sound design, especially the gunfire in the middle
I was
sort
gonna
of
talk about that.
bank set piece, it's
I was gonna
fucking
yeah,
piercing.
yeah.
Makes your ears bleed.
Insane.
But obviously Michael Mann was working on Heat for like, I think couple years. Like he made LA Takedown, which is practically like Heat Light, which I can gather is like the
Yeah.
much shorter, not as good version of Heat. But even in interviews on stuff like Thief and Manhunter and stuff, the pre-Heat stuff, he was talking about this script he was working on called Heat, which he wasn't too keen on directing at the time. I'm from what I can gather, and was like trying to ask like other filmmaker friends to direct it. People like Walter Hill, who is another fantastic filmmaker in his own right, stuff like The Driver and The Warriors and Streets of Fire and that sort of thing. But if
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine Walter Hill directing it, despite the fact he is just another one of my favorite filmmakers. Like, to me, Michael Mann is the only person who could have done this.
Exactly. That's a really good way to put it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think, like, I'm trying to think about it, and I can't imagine any other director trying to pull off Heat
Yeah,
and accomplishing it. Because just, I don't know, only man can do it. Honestly.
that's the thing. Every time because I've seen this thing countless times by now, and every time I watch it, I'm always thinking in the perspective of if a lesser filmmaker did it. Like little
Yeah.
touches like, it wouldn't have had that if Michael Mann didn't do it, or it wouldn't have this, or it wouldn't have this sort of line choice. So he is ultimately this is probably, in terms of his grander filmography, his magnum opus. This is the one everyone knows. This is the one that everyone loves.
I'd absolutely say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the Michael Mann film.
This is probably the perfect jumping off point for any person getting into Michael Mann, because you get it, you got a good spread of everything. Obviously, we'll start here. Obviously, the big hitters, De Niro and Pacino.
Yeah. Oh,
Giving
man.
probably
So good.
Yeah,
Their best performances in their career. I have to think about it, but honestly, I don't know if it's my Heat bias, but I'd say they're giving their best performances here in this movie.
I would honestly 100% back you up on that. This could very well be hyperbolic because we're obviously talking about the movie so lovingly, but Al Pacino's performance in this, man, might be my favorite performance in any movie ever.
That's completely reasonable.
Because
Absolutely.
he never lets up. Every single frame of this thing he's in, it is so entertaining. He is constantly cracking me up. Obviously it's become almost like self-parody by this point, but every single like sort of just the way he moves even onto the frame, it's like
just the way he talks, his mannerisms. He's
clicking his fingers,
like a punchy vibe.
He's
like everything like quick and anxious, and I don't know. He
such an
screams
interesting.
A lot. He's like aggressive.
Yeah.
I love it. I've never seen Pacino. Well, I could compare it at least like kind of like Scarface a bit.
Yeah,
that's probably the closest I could pin it to. But
yeah,
nah, Vincent Hanna is just a monster of his own. Like just
yeah.
Whatever Mann did to get that performance out of it, like whatever the writers did, whatever the team did to put Pacino to get that, like it's just insane. I love it. I was mystified by it when I watched the movie for the first time.
Yeah,
it's so cool, man. So
it's
cool.
such a commanding performance. Like it's such an interesting thing too, where whenever he moves, like whenever he walks onto a crime scene, he's like physical body is so loose looking, like he's just like strutting on, and he's like snapping his fingers, ordering people what to do. Like he knows what he's doing. Like we'll talk about like sort of the ideologies of his character itself and how it's very flawed within the context of the actual movie itself, but like his mind is like tight. He's in the zone constantly. He looks like exhausted throughout the entire movie. He looks like he doesn't know how to sleep. I think you don't actually see it in the movie, but I think it's hinted in like within the actual screenplay itself that he's a coke addict, which makes complete sense because of his erratic outbursts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can definitely see it.
Yes, but like obviously you could tie that in with just being the most high-strung cop in the world.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. De Niro, on the other hand, another fantastic performance, despite the fact he's doing something completely different from Pacino. Yeah,
two complete polar opposites, but still just so that goatee. Man, that goatee. This movie made me want to experiment with goatee just because of De Niro's character, of Neil, just looking so fucking cool. I'm like, man, could I rock that?
I think you could. I think you should give it a go.
And I wish I'm gonna start robbing banks, but don't quote me on that. Uh, but just man, so good.
Yeah,
Um,
he's so calm and sort of reserved throughout the entire movie, except when he gets those angry outbursts. Like for
mm,
example, when he's like slamming Wayne Gro's head on the table after fucking up that the armored truck heist, or when he's
yeah,
when he gets called out by Edie for like lying to her the entire time. He's got this very reserved anger behind him, which is really interesting.
dude, the phone call scene. Come on, the
Yeah,
phone
of
call
course.
scene. There's a dead man on the other end of this line. That is terrifying. He's
Yep.
terrifying. He's completely calm, no screaming, no nothing.
No,
But it's just
he's in
something
complete
about De
control of
Niro,
every situation he's in.
and he's just so menacing in the movie. I
Yep.
loved it.
Yeah, he really is terrifying. Val Kilmer, we've got Kilmer, who how do we feel about Kilmer's performance?
Kilmer's also great. I really like I his character wasn't what I expected him to be. I had a blast seeing him. The whole like really complicated relationship with
Hmm.
his wife, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm. Ashley Judd.
And just yeah. And the scene when they're gonna meet up, and then she warns him about the cops by not saying anything,
Right.
and like she's on the balcony, he's on the street. That scene right there, one of the most powerful scenes I've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
That
it is
scene right
phenomenal.
there,
Yep.
it's just like the way, like you can see it in Kilmer's face, like his disappointment, his like
Oh, it
the
just
smile
hurts to
slowly
watch.
fading, the
Yep.
music, the everything, dude. It's crushing. It's
Yep.
so good. Kilmer is kills it in it. He's, of course, he's kind of like buried by the absolute behemoths that Al Pacino and De Niro are.
Yep.
But I still think Kilmer very much deserves credit for his performance here. It's really good, and that scene is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think he's almost just as terrifying as
Gets me
no, I
going.
think I think Kilmer's just probably as terrifying as De Niro in a different sense where he looks like he just looks like a criminal. Like he doesn't get a whole lot of dialogue throughout the movie, but when he does, it's like
Yeah.
sort of very stern, and like that argument he has with his wife about like you can leave the bank book on the table, but Dominic will go with me, and he like sort of leaps over the couch there, and he's just like
Yeah.
sort of this intimidating presence, and he also moves. I think he moves the best in that gunfight too, in the middle section.
Yeah. He's got it.
Yeah, those very sort of robotic
Absolutely.
controlled bursts that he does. It's fantastic. Like, do you have a favorite sequence in the
I
movie at all?
do. I'm not even gonna let you finish that sentence because I do. Coffee shop scene.
Oh, of
Done.
course.
Enough said.
I
That's
mean,
it.
what else
That's
is there to
probably like
say?
what else? Can we just show that scene to like anybody who's ever watched the film in their life, and they'll probably recognize it.
Yep.
And if they do, they'll be like, "Yeah, no, that's one of the best scenes ever recorded." I thought
It's
about it long and wide. I think it's my favorite movie scene of all
of
time
all
in
time.
general.
Yep.
Dude, yeah, I like almost on a weekly basis. It used to be daily. I just rewatch it.
Yeah.
It drives me insane. It's perfect. And there's that famous image of that behind the scenes image of Mann directing, Pacino and De Niro. They're talking at the table, and it's just really good. I mean, like, it's like I wish I was there the moment that was recorded. I could just like imagine it.
Oh yeah,
But
apparently that was like I think they only took very few takes because like what they got or what the footage they covered was absolutely perfect, so they didn't need too much. And I'm pretty sure I think some of it was improv too, like it was just very improvised on the spot. Which is really
wow, I didn't
interesting.
know that actually.
I think that's
That's
true. I do know for a fact though that loosely the whole movie's based on very loosely a true story where there was a real criminal called Neil McCauley, and there was a detective that was like they were sort of after each other. Very very similar dynamic, and I know
yeah,
for a fact they did meet up for coffee, very much like the scene in this. And I'm fairly sure a lot of the dialogue,
really.
yeah, a lot of the dialogue used in that coffee scene was actual what the real life Neil McCauley and the real life detective after him were actually conversing to one another, which is really fucking cool.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's just, man, I can't. Like, I, I was watching it on my phone, and when it came on, I was like, oh, okay, so this is was the famous coffee scene. I'm really excited for it. And it finished, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I was eyes glued to the screen, didn't
Yes.
like blink.
Well,
Just incredible writing.
incredible
Incredible
writing,
writing. Incredible
obviously
dialogue.
incredible acting. It's quite insane to think because the two have such fantastic chemistry together. They've only got like 2 real scenes in the movie together in the 3-hour runtime.
Yeah, but
Um,
that it just blows up in your face. It's so good. It's such a incredible scene. Like I said, I rewatch it like almost every week
yeah,
just to
it's just
like
it's just one of those scenes
it
where
just
you
puts me
just
in a
like,
good
I just need to
mood.
sit down
It's
and
like,
watch it.
oh
Yeah,
man,
yeah, exactly.
like
Like,
this cool ass movie exists in the same timeline as I do. I'm just like, fuck yeah. But oh man,
mm,
incredible stuff.
yeah,
Like
their dynamic is so magnetic towards one another. Where I love.
it's
Sorry, you go.
no, I was gonna say, well, I don't know if we're gonna talk about this later on
Hmm.
when we talk about like the themes maybe or the motives of each of the characters, but I just want to put this in real quick because it's so relevant to this scene that you have two complete polar opposites sitting at each side of the table.
Hmm.
Um, one is after the other. They're doing completely different things, completely opposite things. They want each other dead, pretty
Hmm.
much,
Hmm.
but they still have this like gentle, down to earth human conversation, like looking at each other and smiling and cracking jokes and shit. It's just the way these. It's like when you put a magnet and they don't. How do you say this? They don't like hit each other with two opposite
Right.
magnets, just getting close, but not. They can't touch each other. It's like just so poetic, man. There's like 50 layers to this shit. It's
Well, that's just
so
it. You're
good.
you're so right. Like the whole movie, but which I picked up on this rewatch, not a single relationship in the entire movie works out. Every single relationship within the entire runtime has a really tragic ending. But for like
But
yes, well
but
that's it. Except
there's
this relationship here, like for lack of a better term, the most powerful relationship in the movie is between the cop and the criminal, which is insane. Like no other filmmaker would think to add that
that's
detail.
man, Michael Mann, everybody.
That's it. That's it.
It's just
Like
incredible stuff.
obviously,
It blew
like
my mind.
yes, as you said, Bold, like just before, like obviously, you know, they even say it in the movie. There's going to be a point within this relationship between you and I where we're going to have to kill the other one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the obvious like mutual respect we have for one another as of this moment is it's cosmic. It's like it's a really insane touch that Mann would like there to me there are like the two main focuses of the movie is sort of the cosmic relationship between characters and which we will get into soon, the man's obsession with like the working class detail and logistics of both sides of the professionals.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah, but like the coffee shop scene
But
is obviously phenomenal.
absolutely, man.
um
Absolutely. That's mine.
there's so many great sort of quotes that come out of this. I love De Niro asking Pacino's like, "Is that your life?" And Pacino's like, "No, my life's a disaster zone." And he's like talking about it. He's like, "I got a stepdaughter so fucked up," because yeah, and he's like, he's really given it some. Both of them are really given something really special. Any scene where Pacino just gets to start screaming, like for example when he's visiting that chop shop and he's like, he starts singing and he's given the "give me all your gut" and all that sort of shit. All that stuff's
Yeah.
great. When he comes home, obviously his relationship with his wife is decaying throughout the entire movie, and he comes home towards the end of the movie and she's had an affair with
Mm.
like some loser called Ralph, and he takes his TV with him and screaming at Ralph, which is great. Obviously the Hank Azaria scene, she's got a great ass, you got your head all the way up it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All scenes we will come back to. But on the opposite side of that, I am obsessed with sort of like the Neil character trying to find an escapism through this like doomed romantic aspect through Edie, which he meets, and
Yes.
is
Yes.
they're planning to run away together to New Zealand, and he's sort of on the periphery keeping his criminal life more on the down low, so she doesn't find out, which obviously blows up in his face at the end, which is tragic.
Absolutely.
Obviously, all the side characters in this movie too, all they're all really memorable. John Voight, who plays sort of like the fence man, who's like giving Neil all his
Yeah.
work, sort of thing, which is really great. Van Zant, who's played by William Fichtner, who gets, hires Waingro to go after or try and kill Neil, I believe, which is really great. Waingro too, which is I think a character we need to
Waingro is
just really
terrifying.
he's
Just terrifying, completely sadistic, fucked up
absolutely sadistic. That whole
villain.
sequence where he's like with that young prostitute,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
really terrifying. Where
Just-
he's like, "You're with the Grim Reaper now, baby." All that sort of shit is just stuck with me for like since I first watched this thing. There's a really interesting cut there too, where he goes to grab her head right before he murders her, and it quickly cuts to like a bottle popping in a bar, which is like really off-putting. Like I've seen that in movies before, where it does a implying cut to something else, like
something else.
but that one is probably stuck with me the most in terms of how disturbing it is.
Really.
Yeah. What do we think in the grand terms of like sort of how it stands amongst action sequencing?
It's just completely insane scene, man. What I like what you mentioned earlier about the gunshots. I had my AirPods on, volume pretty loud,
Yeah.
and you're not expecting it. They got the M16s. They start shooting, and it's just the loudest, most like realistic, soul-piercing gunshots you've ever heard in a movie. But that just adds so much juice to the scene. It's incredible. And it's like a really long scene too. I was like, oh my god, like it's just, I don't know how to say it, so potent, so, like I said, glued to the screen. Like I wasn't breathing right, probably. I think my BPM just went like super up. I was like so tense. Like, who's gonna bite it? I didn't spoil the movie or anything. I didn't know what happened, so I was like, anybody's gonna die in a moment. If I remember correctly, I think Val Kilmer's character got hit.
He gets shot in the shoulder.
Or
Yes.
that was another. Yeah. So I was like, oh shit. So he dies now. Like who, what? They get cornered. They get, oh dude, and it's just, I don't know. Mann's action scenes are just like especially like the gunfight scenes.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a gunfight in the Michael Mann movie, that picture of the guy that's like sitting up straight, like, oh shit,
it's like that. Yeah.
Like that's me. Like,
I think
dude, just.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest sort
tough.
of difference between how Michael Mann shoots his gunfights with other action directors, where like the gunfights in his movies sound fucking terrifying, because like I'm pretty sure he uses like sort of real guns in his movies. Obviously, you got to control all that and sort of like monitor everything and blah blah blah. And you'd be thinking, why don't more directors do that? Because obviously it's like very dangerous and that sort of thing. But it sounds amazing. Even the lead up to the shootout too is the actual bank robbery itself is really thrilling. You got the characters of Neil, Chris, and Michael, which is Tom Sizemore's character, robbing the bank. And there's that really interesting character editing choice, both I guess you could say, that Mann chooses to do when Val Kilmer's character is walking towards the car after they get the money and they think they're out, and he sees the cops across the other street. And in like a lesser movie, you'd get that shot where like he sees the cops see him, and they have like maybe one or, but obviously this is a Michael Mann's movie, so it's very grounded, down to earth grounded. Chris sees the cops and immediately just opens fire. Like it's so just quick. It's so professional. It's so grounded. And obviously that whole shootout just becomes a disaster because so many people get like shot and killed and blah 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 and all the rest of it.
It's insane.
The sounds of the bullets echoing off the
another
buildings.
Small note I wanted to add, that, and I can't put into, if any like future director is listening to this podcast if by any chance, show your characters reloading the guns. That adds,
that's a great point.
So much realism, depth. It brings the scene down to reality, and it is incredibly more tense than seeing your guy go off with an unlimited ammo GTA Vice City M16.
Right.
Like that's cool.
Yep.
But like when the John Wick movies do it, and when
Yep.
this movie does it, you got De Niro crouching behind like this car riddled with bullet holes, glass shattering everywhere,
Yep.
and he goes and he accurately like reloads the M16 on a rush and then keeps going.
And keeps going.
That does so much for the brain. I can't put it into words, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I play a lot of first person shooters, so I kind of like pay more attention to that,
Yeah. That
but
could be it.
it makes me release a lot of dopamine that makes me really happy. Like do that.
It just
That
makes
makes
it
the
that more
scene
exciting
way
too.
more realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stakes are higher. The stakes are real.
And
I don't know.
absolutely. Man's like creative choices of like having Neil like reload the gun behind a car, but also having like these sort of really abstract close-ups of cars just being like just shot to pieces with like bullet holes piercing them, and you see like the glass of a car shatter, and cops laying all over the road. It's really, really he really does master the craft of a tense action sequence. Um
Yeah, yeah, totally.
And obviously, like that's a whole sequence that happens in like the middle of the movie that you'd expect towards the end. And obviously the end of the movie is just the repercussions of that. And the second half of the
Yeah,
movie is pretty relentless too, because obviously it's focusing a lot on Pacino and the repercussions of what's just happened. And he just gets beat after beat after beat after beat. This is the thing. I'm pretty sure Mann was maybe going to set this as a TV series originally, where you could,
really.
yeah, I think so, where like this is the thing, TV series, 10 episodes, you'd have a lot more time to sort of flesh out characters. You could have the bank heist much later, but I'm glad he didn't do that. I feel like it's a much more impactful, like he just packed it all into this one big sort of
Thank
three
God.
hour
Honestly,
three.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I can see why you mentioned that, but I still very much think that, for example, Natalie Portman's scene in the bathtub, I still think that's very important to show
Yes.
because at the end of the day, it's really about what we were talking a little bit about earlier, like these two completely different like forces of nature here,
Hmm.
but they're still human, right?
Yes.
Like they still suffer
Hmm.
human problems. Like you said, Hannah's wife has an affair.
Hmm.
Uh, his daughter, is not well mentally
Yeah.
and all that. So it's just, and well, De Niro's. I call him De Niro because I tend to call tend to call the characters by their actors.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
just
that's fine.
out of instinct. But
People know what you're talking
Neil,
about.
absolutely. I hope they know De Niro. And you know, Neil's love life is also just completely like it's just a one giant facade for what he really does, dealing with like crushing loneliness. The scene in his house, the famous like blue when he's looking at the ocean
Oh, that
uh
classic over the shoulder
scene.
man.
Also another
Yeah.
favorite scene of Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, another favorite scene of Man, of mine and Man. Um, it's just I still think that's very much important to show the most vulnerable side of these characters, you could say.
Absolutely. And you really do get that vulnerability
But
when at the oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
no, 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 you go, man.
You really do get that full force vulnerability, especially like when Neil just meets Edie for the first time, and he's talking about like, I am lonely, but I'm alone, I'm not lonely, which is the really important line he gets to where they're looking over the LA skyline, where Neil's like comparing the skyline to
Yeah.
Fiji algae, which is really, really risen it up there.
Master Riz,
Master
Neil
Riz.
McCauley.
Yeah. But even like beyond the sort of criminal aspect of like the two forces going head to head, I do love just like the downtime of these characters spending together. Like you see them both out to dinner. Um, you know, uh,
Mhm.
with that whole scene where Pacino's crew is on the stakeout watching them come out and watching, and then obviously
Mhm.
you see Pacino's sort of home life and he's out to dinner, but obviously that adds just to the destructive lifestyle of
Yeah.
his marriage because he's having to be called to jobs and his wife feels very left out of the relationship. And I told you when we hooked up, baby, that you're gonna have to share me with all the bad people. And he's such a prick in this movie and how he deals with stuff with his wife.
Dude, that's a great Pacino impression. I'll give you that. Amazing Pacino impression.
But
Oh
even
my
that's
God.
even like set up like within like the first time we see Pacino, because he's like he just gets he's finished doing the business with his wife, and she's like, "Oh, I thought we'd go out for breakfast." He's like, "I'm out of time, baby. I'm eating Bosco," and that sort of shit. And that's a great bit too, when after Pacino finishes the job after what Waingro did to that girl, he comes back to his wife who's just been left at the sort of police dinner there, and she's like, you live among the remains of dead people. This is all you've left of our marriage now. I very much come second. This is
Ooh,
yeah.
brutal. Brutal,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah, yeah,
Brutal
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And it's sort of a wake up call. It's the chance for Pacino to have a wake up call in that scene, but just he is the lock focused individual. Like he for me is the perfect Michael Mann character. There's so like I compare him a lot to sort of Tom Cruise's character in
Yeah.
Collateral, or Will Graham's
Mm,
character in Manhunter. So yeah,
yeah.
obviously Man has that very the obsession of Man with the locked focused prowl all night individual in his movies, and it is very much on show
That's
here with Pacino.
that's such a good. I call it the. I have so many man terms. The man staple.
The
Well,
Man
it's like,
staple.
how do I know? Like the signs you're watching a Michael Mann movie is
Mhm.
that the blue tint. There's a blue
Yes.
filter over it, so you got the blue filter, which I love in Heat especially so much.
Mhm.
It gives it that like almost 2000s like cop movie feel. But aside from that, you got the blue filter, and then you got the main character, or like one of the main characters, trying to have a romantic interest, but like failing to do so, or like it's complicated.
Yes, exactly.
And he also commits crimes. So it's like you have a criminal, you have James Caan's
Yes.
character in
Yep.
Thief.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this guy, he robs shit. He also has like a kind of a shitty love life. He
Mm-hmm.
tries balancing, being a thief and his love life. You have this with Hannah and Macaulay. You have Collateral with
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Foxx's character, kind of has like a little love interest in the movie,
Yeah, that's
sort of
true.
ish.
Absolutely.
And he's helping out this hitman,
Yep.
putting out jobs in the night. So that's like, oh man, when I was watching Thief,
Mm-hmm.
and like the movie just started, so you see the guy first thing in the movie rob like a vault, like a little safe, and then I was like just waiting for the love, so for the for the love interest to come on. I was like, dude, come on, there's
It's
needs to
got
be a love interest in
yes.
the middle of all this, and then
Yes.
you get to the love interest, like yes, it's a Michael
Yes.
Mann
There,
movie.
there we go.
We're
Michael
in
Mann,
it, yeah,
baby.
baby.
That's it.
We got a
We need
criminal
the
with a shitty love life.
yeah, we need
Yes, we're in it.
the lock focused criminal with the doomed romantic love life. That's it. I don't know if
Exactly.
you've
That's so good.
that's the Michael Mann code right there. That's the coded Michael Mann, yeah, stamp of approval. I don't know if you've had a chance to check out Miami Vice yet, which is like we talk about this being the ultimate like filled with man idiosyncrasies that doubles down on. That's the
I
old
can't wait to watch it.
yeah,
I haven't
that
seen it yet. I haven't seen it.
that very much is like Colin Farrell's character in that movie is very much like the shark that can't stop, the lock focused individual with the doomed romantic life, just because he can't get out of that life. It's really
Oh,
interesting
can't
to see
wait.
that. Yeah, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love
Can't
it.
wait.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting to watch that sort of connective tissue between every single one of his movies. I want to ask you this, like the look of this movie too, because obviously Man shoots LA so gorgeously. We get a lot of the. It's really interesting too because I can't. Every one of his this is gonna sound really stupid, but every single one of his movies looks the same, but yet doesn't, because they've all got a different.
No, I get it. I get it. I know exactly what you mean. I
Yeah,
know
because
exactly what you mean.
I'm trying to think, because a lot of this movie visually despite the fact they're two different cinematographers, a lot of this movie looks a lot like Thief, but it has I can't really put it into words because there's a different angle on it. It just looks different enough to stand out on itself where you can compare it solely to Thief, because I don't know, you get in both Thief and this one Heat we're talking about, you get like a lot of sort of the empty industrial areas, the people meeting in empty parking lots, like the
Yeah.
espionage, people on telephones, a lot of a great man touch which I love, which are in all of his movies, is people talking on the phone but never saying hello and never saying goodbye. They just hang up, which is great. Everyone's so terse in Michael Mann movies. No one's got manners. It's great. But yeah, obviously, like, you know, the espionage is really doubled down in this. That whole sequence too, where Pacino's on the first stakeout to De Niro's character, where I forgot what they're robbing, but they're in the back of that truck, and obviously the cop accidentally makes a noise and lets Neil's crew that they're there. But you get that really fantastic shot where you sort of get the first impression that Hannah and Neil are going to have some sort of connection. Is where they're both of them, you get that super close up, both of them of just staring at each other, despite the fact they can't actually see each other, which is really interesting. Yeah. So, sorry, what were you
Some
going to
say? Jedi Force the
say?
some like the Jedi.
Yeah, Michael
The
Mann's
Force
Star Wars
Giants
is something I'd be
shit
interested in
with-
checking out.
Yeah, so good.
Chewbacca looking out into the middle
Get him
distance.
out of there. Get him out of there. No, get him out of there.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I'm gonna say, yeah, it's just I love how this movie looks. I guess you could say it looks similar to Thief because of mostly the blue darkish tint over it, the filter. Thief also has that very blue look to it, but I love how this movie looks. It looks, if I could like describe it, I'd say cold. It's just
I think you're
it's
completely right. Yep.
melancholic. Let me scratch that. I'm gonna go with melancholic because, oh man, it's just I can't put into words how much I love the shot, like the one we just talked about, the Neil over the shoulder looking at the ocean shot. That's just probably it's loneliness encapsulated perfectly into this one shot in the movie. Just so
absolutely.
good. And I don't know, man. It's I really like what you mentioned recently, how Mann shoots LA in this and in Collateral, right? Collateral took place in LA.
Absolutely, yeah. That's
Yeah.
the one. Collateral's the one that really shows off LA the most in his filmography.
It's just, oh man.
Because
I don't know.
Mann's obsession
I love
with
it.
I don't know what Mann was cooking, but there's a lot of Mann was obsessed with just like cutting to abstract sort of highway shots in LA within Collateral. It sort of helps break up the scenes a lot. There's obviously if people sort of getting into Mann's sort of filmography, listening to this podcast, like, and they think there's a lot of sort of exterior LA shots within this. Check out Collateral, because that like I want to say like 30% of that movie is just like sort of exterior shots of LA.
LA.
Just cars driving around on those crazy highways, and it's phenomenal stuff.
Incredible.
Yeah, obviously the look of the ending, the final confrontation between these two is phenomenal.
I'm cooking up. I'm cooking it up.
Are you cooking it up? Okay. Because I was just going to circle back to something you were talking about before, which you put really well, is that like the ending reminds me a lot. You mentioned obviously a lot of this movie feels just like sort of an 80s sort of cop show feel. And that one, this final sequence feels the most out of the entire runtime like that. But like Mann's mixing in the big confrontation between these almost two mythic characters just going to head finally at this airport, obviously with the tragic setup moments before. We haven't mentioned this yet, but Neil's whole ideology that he lives by, which he sort of can't escape by, is 30 seconds flat if you spot the heat around the corner. So obviously that ends that doomed romanticism, which, let's be honest, that was never going to work out.
Yeah, he's kind of a dumbass, but man, just this movie has a lot of my favorites of all time. I know I sound like a broken record, but truly one of my favorite endings of all time. It's just, I mean, sorry, the movie's just that good. I don't make the rules.
I think you're totally justified in saying that.
but dude, the final confrontation, everything leading up to it, you get that first little tidbit when what you just said, Neil mentions walking out in 30 seconds flat if you see the heat around the corner. So
Mhm.
you get that. That's your little like first tidbit. And then you know, him saying that he's not gonna go back, like no matter what, he's not going back
Yeah.
to prison. So you got that. And all of that before too, like before the final confrontation, you have Hannah in the hospital, if I'm not mistaken. He's with his stepdaughter and his wife.
Yes.
So you have him at his most vulnerable there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of the quote. It's like I think he says to his wife, "All I am is what I'm after." I don't think if it was in that scene or
Yes.
it
No.
was
No. You are
later
right.
or
All I
like
am is what I'm
before.
going after. Yes, that is that scene.
All I'm that one of the best movie quotes ever. I
Oh,
love it. I love it
100%.
that it
And
comes just before the final
just
confrontation.
before and I think if I can quickly just cut in there, I think that scene to me is the perfect of unlocking Vincent's character as a whole, because obviously this is after he finds out about the affair and whatnot, and they're sort of talking, and obviously their relationship is done, but they're sort of talking. They're like, "Do you reckon we could maybe work things out?" And Vincent's like, "You don't want me as a husband."
Yeah.
Because like all I am is his main focus in life is catching criminals.
Ooh,
Like
I'm
there's no,
getting goosebumps right now just thinking
yeah,
about that scene.
that's his whole thing. Like obviously he's talked about previously in the movie, I'm on the downswing of my third marriage. He's his only main goal in life is to catch criminals. Nothing else, Matt, not even a marriage. So there's that whole scene, even despite the fact they end on quote unquote good terms, that whole bit where he gets the call on his little cell thing that he's maybe caught
Yeah.
Neil, he leaves the hospital running down the stairs with a big grin on his face, like, "Yes, baby, I'm back to work." And Justine's left there at the
Yeah.
hospital in tears. So yeah, his priorities are set on what he wants to do in life, despite the fact they're completely damaging to everyone around him.
And you could say the exact same for Neil. He's going to
Exactly.
the airport. He's got his girlfriend in the passenger seat. He's going to the airport to start a new life, and he gets this call about I think it
Oh,
was who
Wanger
was
at the
it? That
hotel.
was
Yes.
yeah, there we go. Like Wayne goes at the hotel. You could
Yep.
like drop this, go live a happy life with your girlfriend, or
Yep.
keep coming back to what you do best.
Yep.
And he just
He can't
and
let
the
it go.
whole
He
thing.
can't. It's part of his
Oh man.
DNA. And on this rewatch here, I was in preparation for this podcast we're doing now. I was watching this. I showed this movie to my mum for the first time, and that scene where it's one of my favorite bits of acting De Niro's ever done. It's completely dialogue-less. It's all going on in his face within the car where he's deciding on whether to make the turn or not. And when he makes the turn to go after Wayne Grove, my mum was so pissed. She was like, "You're a fucking idiot." It was great. So it was great
Yeah,
to it
that
was
was my
great
exact
to
same reaction.
yeah, it was great to show someone who had never seen it before get such a visceral reaction out of it. It was fantastic.
Oh man, I'm glad. I'm glad. I hope she liked it
Yeah,
because
she loved it. She loved it.
hell
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, no, you're
But
totally right in the fact that these two, they're both, despite the fact, bad guy, good guy, I guess you could say, very loose term.
yeah,
They
very
they
loose.
do share the exact same ideology.
Yeah, and well, you have the airport, little gunfight they have.
Yep.
Incredible stuff. Just amazing editing, by the way. Just the quick
It's so
snapping
tense.
between the two, the plane like making enough noise to like
Yep.
kind of like give them an opening to shoot each other and stuff.
Yep.
You don't know if one of them is hiding behind like a little box or something. They're turning corners, they're shooting, they're getting like 1, 2 shots in, but missing. Again, glued to the screen, didn't
Yep.
breathe, didn't nothing. I was like
Yep.
hunchback, like just staring at the screen. And he gets Neil. Spoilers for Heat if you haven't seen
Yeah.
Heat,
Oh no,
but
spoilers are fine on this
yeah.
show, man. Go for it.
But he gets him, and they have that little like hand. They hold like each other's hands. They're like, "I told you, I'm not going back."
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude,
It's
this is the best movie ever
fucking
made.
killing me. It's the creative choice that Mann literally holds. Sorry, let me say that again. The fact that Mann literally decides to finish the movie on these two characters literally holding hands. So we've
it just
talked
ends there.
ends there. We've talked about throughout the entire the episode so far that the movie is a lot of the movie is focused on these decaying relationships, and it perfectly sort of adds to our argument that between the relationship between Neil and Hannah is, for lack of a better term, the only stable one, because it literally the final frame of this
Ends
movie is them holding hands. Phenomenal stuff.
literally best romantic movie ever.
Yes,
Best February
absolutely.
14th.
Yeah.
If you don't have a movie for Valentine's Day, watch Heat. Just
You've-
any excuse to watch Heat. I'll probably rewatch Heat.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
You've heard it here from
But,
Balta. That's it. Heat is now a Valentine's Day movie.
Definitely Heat. But dude, just man, I don't know. You could dissect this movie for just hours upon hours. If I was like a film teacher, I'd do a course only on Michael Mann.
hmm
Just because, oh my god, dude, this movie, man. I also really, really, really love Collateral.
hmm
But nothing quite reaches the levels of Heat for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me, I think the runtime is probably a big factor of it. But whenever I finish this movie, I'm like beat after it. I'm like, oh, that was a fucking movie. That was a
That was
fucking
a
movie right there.
fucking movie, yeah.
Yeah, it took me through all these different emotions. But on that note, I think pivoting towards like final thoughts on this movie. So final thoughts for No Intermissions. We're just, any scenes we may have left
Final
out, which I'm sure are a
thoughts.
lot. Any sort of final thoughts, as you just said. Yep. Any final sort of lines of dialogue that we really love and appreciate that we may have left out. We'll just get them all out here before we move on to our next movie. So I'll start with you.
Well, honestly, thank you for the honors. Honestly, man, just one of my favorite scenes in the movies, aside from all the ones we talked about, definitely I gotta give it to the opening heist with the like white hockey masks. I don't know if they're hockey masks, but the white masks and them flipping the truck gave me like very big GTA 5 vibes. And I was like piecing it together, like, oh, that's probably where they got it from. Like, I get it. Yeah, like it's just amazing scene. A really, really good opener. Got me like immediately hooked on it. I was like, oh shit, like this is it's gonna be one of those, right? It's gonna be it's gonna be an all-timer, right?
Yeah.
So I love that scene. Other lines of dialogue. Honestly, even though All I Am Is What I'm After is like really up there, like really, really up there.
Yeah.
It gets beat up by just one, which is, coffee scene. I don't know how to do anything else, and neither do I. That's easy. That's the entire.
I can't believe we left that out.
3 hours, almost 3 hours of movie in like 2 lines.
Yes,
that's it.
And I can't believe we left that out. You're so right for bringing that up. That little look they give each other too might be my favorite thing in any movie ever. It is. It gives me goosebumps, man. Every time that sort of like that 3 seconds of movie happens, I rewind it. It's phenomenal stuff.
Yes, dude.
You did talk about. Oh, sorry. Yeah, keep going.
No, you go, man.
I was just going to say, just within final thoughts here, you did bring up GTA 5 as sort of, it reminded you of it. And it's kind of amazing that there's so many things inspired by Heat after. Obviously, like, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to realize that obviously Christopher Nolan's probably a massive fan of this movie because he directed The Dark Knight, which to me is just, The Dark Knight is just Heat with
awesome
Batman
fucking
in it.
Movie,
Yeah.
When people tell me, oh, Dark Knight's just, I didn't see Dark Knight ever up until last year. I was like hugely missing out. And I heard like, it's just Batman Heat. I'm like, what the
that's
fuck
exactly
did you just say?
That's exactly
what did you just
is.
say? Hashtag now watching. What the fuck? Like,
that's exactly all it is.
Get me that movie.
Yeah. I know obviously this podcast is dedicated to double features that don't make sense, but if I were to make a podcast of double features that do make sense, it would be Heat and The Dark Knight. Come on, this is it. Because those two movies go hand in hand. I mean, a lot of details we've probably left out, which I'll be kicking myself after that I've remembered after obviously the whole sort of Hank Azaria scene of the, She's got a great ass
Mm.
scene. I do
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny too because you can clearly see Al Pacino about to say big ass, but he quickly changes because he goes to say buh, and he quickly changes it the last second. It says great ass. Little detail I picked up on too after this rewatch is that I don't know who says it, but you can hear someone in the background say, "Jesus Christ! Like, what the fuck is this guy on?"
I
It's
did see.
really, really funny. That's another thing too. There's a lot of levity in this movie, a lot of great funny scenes.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
Al Pacino.
Of
There's a
course.
lot
We
of
could
great
pick it
yeah,
apart like for hours,
yeah.
but you know,
A lot of hard-boiled Michael Mann
it's
dialogue, which
just
we've left out. He's a big fiend for
yeah,
action, which I love. We mention it. You live among the remains of dead people. That scene, I got to quickly bring it up before we wrap up here. The thesis line of the movie for me is when Neil comes back to his apartment for the first time after the big heist, and Edie sees the whole thing. She knows about it all now on TV because
yeah.
it's plastered all over the news. And she asks about his friend Michael. She's like, "That was your friend Michael that got killed in that heist?" And Neil's like, "It's very off-putting and weird because he's practically talking to himself. He's like trying to drink water, and he's like, that was my friend Michael. He knew the risk. He knew the score. If it rains, you get wet."
So cold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That line, if it rains, you get
yeah.
wet, to me is like the
Chilling. If it rains
perfect
good, yeah.
thesis line of the movie. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a needle starting at zero, going the other way. There's a great, we didn't mention, but there's a great one of the people that work for Pacino, Sergeant Drucker, I believe his name is, who gets some really great stuff with Ashley Judd's character trying to convince to give up Val Kilmer,
Mm.
and she's talking
Val
about
Kilmer,
he's talking about sort of the ultimatum if she doesn't cooperate, and he's talking about how their son will go into sort of detention centers, he'll steal a car, and he's going to go into Gladiator Academy, which is the line I really got a lot of enjoyment out of.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, come on, man, this is it. Heat. What else is there to say? I think we
Honestly,
could be talking about this movie for another 3 hours and still miss out stuff.
honestly, after this episode, after we finish recording, I think I'm gonna open Letterboxd more because it's just I'm just thinking about it. Just makes me like I don't know, just does something to me, man. I love
Absolutely,
this movie so much. Like no,
absolutely, man.
like
That's why I wanted to do this for the first episode. This is my favorite movie. This is it. This is my number one.
this is it. They got it.
Yeah. So I think are we done on here? Is there anything else we want to mention?
Honestly, I think we're done, dude.
I
I
think we're good
think
for now.
I've
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go
Like I
watch
said,
it.
I'm sure there's
If you
stuff we've
haven't
missed
seen
out.
it, go watch it.
Go watch Heat.
Well, we just spoiled it, but anyways, go watch it. If you have, watch it again. Who cares?
Exactly.
Incredible stuff.
Exactly.
Incredible stuff. You gotta see it.
That's it, man. That's it. All right. So that'll do it on Heat. We'll be right back. We're going to be talking about Superman from 1978. Stick around.
Because of the wisdom and compassion of Jor-El, because he knew the human race had the capacity for goodness, he sent us his only son. His name is Kal-El. He will call himself Clark Kent. But the world will know him as Superman.
We are back. We are talking Superman from 1978. The American superhero comic book action film with, just like Heat, another absolute ensemble cast. We're doing the heavy hitters today, Balta. I hope we're ready, man. We've got Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman, Christopher Reeve, Ned Beatty, and Jackie Cooper. Of course, is based on the DC Comics character Superman, and is directed by one Richard Donner, the King. Now, before we actually start talking about Superman, much like just with Heat, Richard Donner, how do we what's our relationship with Donner? Have we seen many other Richard Donner films?
I have not seen any other Richard Donner film.
Wow, really?
Actually, I'm gonna go on and say that I'm gonna say something like a fake cinephile thing, but I didn't honestly like know him by like name.
Okay.
And then I was like, like why is this Superman movie
Mhm.
so fucking good? Like, why is it so well directed? Why is it so well made? Right? Like, I was like, expecting kind of like a one-off, 80s quick kind of cheap like Superman movie.
Mhm.
So then I look him up, and yeah, he did like The Goonies,
Of course.
and he did what was Lethal Weapon?
He did the
Is
lethal.
it?
I think he
Yeah,
did
he did Lethal
the
Weapon.
1 to 4. I think he did all of them.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah, I
like
think there's
this
quite a
guy,
few
he
Lethal
knows
Weapon
his
movies.
stuff. Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. So
Yeah,
now I get it. Now I see why he went like God mode on Superman. But
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
He
yeah. But this is absolutely my first Donner. Yeah.
Yeah, and Donna's an interesting one too because he's done so many different genres. Like he's done, obviously Superman today we're talking about.
Yeah.
The closest thing I can compare to Superman in terms of his filmography is like what you mentioned, The Goonies, in terms of that like lighthearted, joyous
Yeah.
fun. Because even The Goonies in some aspects just feels like a comic book movie in terms of like
Mm.
this type of comic book movie at the very least on its lightheartedness. But yeah, like stuff like Lethal Weapon, which probably has more of a harder edge to it, I guess you could say, and stuff like The Omen too. So he's directed like a horror movie. So he's got sort of a mixed bag in
Oh,
terms of
really?
genre. Yeah, I need to catch up on some Donner stuff. I haven't seen everything, but I mean, like after this rewatch, man, this is the second time I've seen this movie. Uh, this is I there's not too many flaws you can pick from Superman. This is as an overall film, this is pretty fucking perfect.
It's incredible, honestly. Like my relationship with Superman is just that I actually like initially a while back I didn't care for Superman. I thought Superman was boring. I was like, okay, so he's basically like God or whatever,
Yeah,
right? He's
yeah.
perfect. He has no flaws. Who cares about this guy? Whatever. And then uh last year I start reading some Superman comics. Not
Uh-huh.
much, actually, just a
Yeah.
couple, but I read what was it? It was Birthright. I read Birthright.
Birthright's
I
excellent.
like
Yep.
Dude, I finished that and I was like, holy shit, I
Yeah.
get it. I
Yep.
get it. I want to live. I want to love. I
I want
I
to
got
live.
newfound hope
Yeah.
for the human race. Like it's
Hmm.
just so good. So now I've been kind of like a little like Superman kick.
Hmm.
So I was really excited to watch this for the podcast because aside from that, like if it wasn't for this cast, I would have never probably watched this movie just like I don't know, like on my own.
Hmm.
Um and dude, just I loved it. Like you said, like I tried really hard, like rocking my brain, trying to like pick something apart from it that I didn't quite like as much as the
Yeah.
rest.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, this is one of the most heartfelt, just pure, like comic book, like superhero movies. Like the textbook definition of a superhero movie is this movie. This movie should be studied as like how to make like a superhero movie
Oh,
super,
I'm right
right?
there
Like
with you.
just
No, like as you said, like just a pure superhero movie. I think it's even beyond that. Something just like a pure movie. There's not like an ounce of like
yeah.
cynicism in the entire thing. It's actually kind of shocking, and it's off-putting in a good way where obviously uh Richard Donner as a filmmaker clearly understands the source material at the time anyway, because this is 1978. So obviously, he was basing the movie off sort of the earlier runs of the character. Obviously, we've got like some great runs now from the character stuff. Like, have you had a chance to read All Star Superman yet?
I started it. I never finished it, but
Okay.
I did start it.
Yeah.
But I can kind of see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. Just very like light-hearted readings of the character, but Richard Donner as a filmmaker gets it. And I don't think he was the first choice either. It was going around to people like Spielberg and a few others, like
Really?
a few other heavy hitters, which I can only imagine what a Spielberg Superman movie would look like, especially at
Yeah.
that time too.
Insane.
That would have
Nuclear.
been
But
just as
yeah.
magic. That would have been just as
Yeah.
magical. I think the reason that didn't end up happening is because he was asking for too much money, and I think they were a bit nervous because I think this is the same time about what Jaws was coming out, and I think they were a bit nervous on how Jaws was
Mm,
going to go in the
yeah.
box office, and that ended up obviously just being an absolute hit. But yeah, no, they ended up going with Donner, and I think they've picked the execs that at the time picked a perfect person to helm Superman because Yeah, this is I was so happy that this was the first time watch for you too, because there are so many just wholesome. I think wholesome's the perfect word too to describe this,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
every single scene that Superman is on frame, which is like a lot of it, you don't get a lot of Superman stuff in the first half, but a lot of obviously the second half of the movie is very Superman heavy. He's just got the most joyous, wholesome grin on his face the entire time.
Yeah,
He's making really like just they're cheesy, but they're very well earned quips to the criminals he's handling. Um, yeah, it's good stuff.
it's amazing. It's just this is also you just mentioned like the cast
Yeah,
is so incredible.
yeah,
I like when I saw fucking like Marlon Brando Jor-El, like I tweeted it. I was like, fucking Marlon Brando Jor-El is an insane fucking casting. Like that's incredible.
yeah.
Um,
I don't think he wanted to
Gene
be a part of this
Hackman,
movie though.
Lex Luthor too. Really?
Yeah, Marlon Brando. Sorry to cut you off there, but quickly, Marlon Brando. I'm pretty sure that I was watching some interviews and I was reading some behind the scenes stuff in preparation for this podcast. He was apparently on set phoning it in a lot of the time. He just did not give a shit.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I couldn't personally tell, but I just think like seeing Marlon Brando's face on like a Krypton armor suit was just really funny and cool,
Yeah.
honestly, in a way. Um, Gene Hackman Lex Luthor is also a really inspired choice. I loved it. I loved this interpretation of Lex Luthor. I
Hmm.
thought it was great.
Very witty.
But of course, also Margaret Kidder, Lois
Yeah.
Lane, incredible.
She's a highlight for
But
me. She is fantastic in this movie.
she's fantastic. But of course, I got to give it to the star. Christopher Reeve.
Hmm.
Just I've never seen him in like anything. Uh, this was my first Christopher Reeve movie, and just the way he manages Clark and Superman, it's just so. There's this scene when he's in Lois's apartment as Superman. He flies her around, all of that, and then he comes back on the front door as Clark, right? So he
Yeah.
goes in, and then Lois is like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get a coat,"
Hmm.
and then he takes his glasses off, and he kind of like you can see him in real time as he takes his glasses off. He fixes his posture. His
Yes.
chest gets like a little bigger,
Yeah,
kind
it
of like
stands out a little
puffs
bit more.
up,
Yep.
and it's like, dude, that's incredible stuff. It's a very small detail, but
Yes.
it's amazing stuff. And just sorry, I'm going on a tangent because I was honestly like enamored by
Hmm.
Reeves' performances on here. It's just his Clark Kent is like wholesome, like you said, like quirked up white boy of the century. Like I
Yeah,
think
spot on.
honestly, like dude, just like I tweeted this, like he's the biggest literally me ever. For like
Yeah,
he's a
exactly.
beacon of hope
Yeah,
for all
you,
of us.
you can keep your Ryan Goslings and your Drive movie out there.
Dude,
He's So Me
I'm
as Christopher Reeve
Christopher
Superman.
Reeve, Clark Kent. That's
The
me.
wholesome boy.
But yeah, dude, just amazing cast, amazing cast. I wasn't
Ultimate
expecting
ultimate golden retriever energy coming from him.
it.
But
Absolutely.
you're so right. Reeve touches so many little subtle differences, which I really picked up on, like you just mentioned on this rewatch, between his portrayal between Clark Kent and Superman, of course. Like obviously, the posture fix up and the glasses and even down to the minute detail of his voice slightly changes too. Like as Superman, his voice is a bit more like booming and deep, and when
Yeah,
he's like he's very where his portrayal of
like
Clark Kent is so fucking just special. Like he's the ultimate sort of like wholesome bumbling around. He almost reminds me a
yeah,
lot of like how like Woody Allen acts in his movies, where he's like very clumsy and very like sort of just sort of unaware of how much sort of chaos, innocent chaos he might be creating in his environments.
yeah. Totally, man. I actually, yeah. I love that you mentioned the voice difference because that was so cute. Like just
Hmm.
seeing him go like, "Oh, hello, Miss Lynn. Do you want to go out for dinner?" It's like
Yes,
shit like
yeah, and
that. He's like
he
super
talks a
quick.
lot quicker too, and a lot more nervously when he's Clark Kent.
Yeah,
It's
and then
little,
Superman, he's like, "Oh, hello, Miss Lane." He's
yes,
like,
yeah.
"Whoa." It's
You shouldn't be
so
smoking
cool,
those, Miss
man.
Lane. All that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's
Oh,
still the
so
safest way of
cool.
travel. All that sort of stuff's really cute.
I love him.
But it's crazy to think that Reeves wasn't even like obviously an unknown actor at the time when they were casting this. It was even going to people like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was going to people like James Brolin, who was in. Yeah, can you imagine Arnie as Superman? This is the thing. I
That's
was reading all this,
insane.
like this was all part of the behind the scenes stuff. I was shocked. It was going to people like John Voight, who we just talked about in Heat. Um,
What?
yeah, it was even going to like James Caan, who we just talked about in relation to Heat with.
No fucking way.
Yeah, and James
No
Caan was
way.
like on the phone to Marlon Brando. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this silly cape shit. Like, can you imagine me in that costume flying around doing fucking loop-de-loops? He was like saying this shit to like Marlon Brando, which is really funny. Nick Nolte it was going to, who wanted to play Superman as a schizophrenic, which is just fucking bizarre. So yeah, it's really interesting. But yeah, I'm really happy they went with Reeves because I don't know. We will get into this briefly of other interpretations of the live action Superman, but I think after this rewatch, especially, Reeves may have the one up on me beyond Henry Cavill, which I think is also
Yeah.
because I don't. Have you seen much of the Snyder stuff?
I just Batman v Superman and both cuts of Justice League.
Okay.
But I liked him. He was
Yeah.
pretty cool, but it didn't get me. I really don't want to get into the whole like Snyder shit, like
Oh God,
whatever.
no,
But
definitely
I
not.
think I think Cavill was really good, but I definitely did not get the same sense of like quirky, wholesome hopefulness of just. I think Reeve portrays that much better than Cavill. Like
Yeah,
if I were to show like one of my friends, like okay, like show me, you know, like the definitive Superman movie, give me like an intro to Superman. It'd
yeah,
probably be like this movie and like Birthright, like the
yes,
starter pack or All Star,
yeah.
like as a combo pack. Like just do
Hmm.
these. Of course, I just started being a Superman fan. I don't have the much. I don't have like a lot of experience on this, but honestly, just I really doubt I'll watch another Superman movie that tops this one. I'm hoping the best for Legacy, but honestly, it's going to be really hard to top this one. I think this one is the definitive and will continue to be the definitive interpretation of Superman.
I think you're 100% right. I don't really my personal feelings exactly. I don't see the point of Birthright. I guess, money. You got to continue on some sort of cinematic universe, I guess. But in
Oh, you
terms
mean
of
Legacy?
Legacy, sorry,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
James Gunn one, I don't really see the point of all that. But yeah, like I said, I guess, it brings in money for, these new
yeah,
cinematic universe, all that tied stuff. But in terms of like quality, like you said, I can't imagine it topping this portrayal because this just understands it so well. And it also a thing that I think a lot of people miss talking about this movie is that it takes its time. This is like a 2.5 hour movie, which is insane.
dude. I was starting the movie. I was about to press play, and I see the little timer, like on the player,
Yeah.
and I see 2 hours and 30 minutes. I was like, "What the fuck? This
Yeah,
is
I know.
long."
I know. And at first
And
you think, why?
they're literally that. I was about to say, like, there's no way they can make a cohesive 2.5 hour
Yeah.
Superman movie.
Yeah. And you
Like,
don't
come
get,
on, guys, let's
yeah.
be real.
Yeah.
And then I finished it, and I was like, nope, I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. I so get it.
It's
But it's
methodical.
long. It's a
It,
it's a
it's
hefty
it's
movie. Yeah.
long. It takes its time, but I think it also helps in the fact that the movie is perfect. The three acts of the movie are almost seen as three completely different movies in amongst itself. With the first,
Yeah.
you've got all
Exactly.
the Krypton stuff, which is like perfect throwback sci-fi stuff, almost reminded me of stuff like your Flash Gordon or even your early Lucas Star Wars
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the second act, it's sort of like a throwback to 50s cinema of like it's very homely and comfortable movie watching, I think. It's just very cute. And then obviously the third act, I think Donna was really obsessed with verisimilitude and trying to make a very grounded like action book comic book
Mm,
action finale within his movies. So
yeah.
I think the three different acts feeling very separated from one another helps with the runtime too.
Yeah. I really liked it. I really liked that. It didn't feel that long because it was so well paced and
Hmm.
so well like structured.
Yeah,
Um, that I was just, I just had a blast, really.
Absolutely. And I think the fact that the actual quote unquote Superman stuff doesn't happen till like the middle part of the movie really helps too. Because
Yeah,
it does take its time setting up Clark, working at, we get all the classic stuff that Superman fans would want to see, working at the planet,
yeah.
meeting Mr. White,
Lois and
Lois. What's that little kid's name?
what's his name?
What's that little
Yeah, was
twerp?
it
What's that little
Jimmy?
twerp's name?
Was it Jimmy?
Jimmy Olsen.
Jimmy Olsen. There we go.
Meeting
Got it.
Jimmy Olsen, working at the planet, setting up the city. Of course, you got to set up the great Lex Luthor, which you mentioned previously, portrayed by the
Yeah.
great Gene Hackman, who I think even as these movies went on, I don't think Donna came back for the second one. I think it was someone else. But I think even as the sequels probably got worse and worse, I reckon Hackman stayed just as good because he really commits to it. Yeah, because you haven't seen any of the sequels yet, right?
No, I haven't seen them. No,
Okay.
no.
They do lessen in quality, but Hackman is just as good. He's really phenomenal in
Really
all these
good,
movies. Yeah. It's yeah, but like so this was the first time watch for you. Did you have like a standout moment or a standout sort of quote or image that really just glued you?
Honestly, one of my favorite moments, of course, is the first suit up.
Of course.
The classic John Williams theme kicks
Mhm.
in. The first time, of course, I heard it a million times, but this is the first time I've heard it, like in an official way.
Mhm.
And dude, just the nastiest goosebumps all over my body. I
Yeah.
loved it. It was so cool. And even though, of course, these special effects are outdated because it's a movie from the 80s, right? But
Mhm.
it still managed to capture, the exact same wonder I would feel if I watched the movie. Like the exact same thing recreated with like today's special effects.
Mhm.
I think it'd be the same because it just has so much heart.
Mhm.
I love that scene so much. But shots, there's like so many good
It is a
moments, so
gorgeous
many
looking movie.
standouts. It's a gorgeous looking movie. I posted some screenshots on my Twitter,
Yeah.
and it was just like I was so confused because I was like I said, I'm watching a Superman movie. Why the fuck is it like one of the best directed movies I've ever seen? Like what the
Yeah.
hell?
It's like a campy,
Um,
sort of campy fun Superman movie, but it's at the same time just
all
genuinely gorgeous.
especially all of the Smallville stuff looks
Yes, I was about to say
incredible.
the exact same thing.
This all like countryside shots. It's just wonderful looking movie. Wonderful looking movie.
That's the stuff that really stood out for me was probably my favorite frame of the movie is there's that awesome shot of Clark standing out in the field, and we get that behind the shoulder shot of Clark's mum looking at him through the screen
Yeah,
door,
and
which is
like the
really
door.
phenomenal.
Yes,
Yeah,
dude.
that really stood out for me. Yeah, I can't agree more. All the Smallville stuff, even amongst all the action and sort of the fun set pieces throughout the movie, all the really good looking stuff happens in more of the quieter Smallville moments.
Yeah. I love that. I love that
Yeah.
so much.
But yeah, even on the flip side of that coin, all the New York stuff too is really phenomenal. Like just
Yeah,
all the exterior shots outside the planet are really good. That little
yeah,
alleyway set piece happens with the gun, the robber with the gun.
yeah,
Even down to the stuff of like Lex's evil lair, which is like sort of
yeah.
all train
Like
station architecture, which is really awesome.
underground with a
Yeah,
pool
the pool is
in the middle of it.
awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I fucking loved this like Lex Luthor because it was so different. I was expecting, of course, I never saw anything about this movie ever.
Mhm.
So I was expecting like, typical bald scientist Lex Luthor. And they have like this greedy real estate, like
Yeah,
living
he's
in
like a
the
real estate.
NYC subway. Lex Luthor who wants to. This is, by the way, the best evil master plan of all time. Just blow up California. I
Yep,
love
that's
it.
it.
I love it. It's literally just let's get California out of the map and make fucking Lex Luthor Fornia. And I'm like, holy shit, this is the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
It's
You're
like,
yes,
yeah,
dude.
it's like a proper sort of like comic book villainy plot too.
Villain, yeah, like just like fucking Tom and Jerry as villain.
Almost, yeah. Yeah,
Shit,
exactly.
like, I love it. I love this Lex Luthor so much, especially after the only Lex Luthor I've ever seen on screen being Jesse Eisenberg's one.
Right.
Like, I'm okay. Like it's this one was way better. But
Yeah.
um,
But
so
yeah,
good.
you're totally right. It's sort of like a weird plot about real estate, and the whole California thing is really great, and even like we're jumping ahead a bit, but all the special effects on the destruction of California when that's
Yeah,
all going to shit, I think still holds up. Like the sinking
yeah,
crevices and all that sort of stuff is really fun. But yeah, when it's not doing that, when it's not doing sort of the evil mastermind stuff, it's doing stuff like Clark at the Planet, bumbling around in the
mm,
daytime, and then at the nighttime foiling like just pure cartoon robbers, like people scaling up skyscrapers with those little sticky suction cup things, and he's like, is there something wrong with
yeah.
the elevator? All that stuff's really fun.
So good.
Yeah, he just perfectly picks him up and hands him down to a cop walking along the street, and he's like, "Yep, take him away." It's all really
Take it
great stuff.
away. So good.
That whole bit too, where he just dumps that massive boat onto the New York street, is really
Yeah.
fun. And I love the
So
contrast
much
to
heart, man.
so much heart. The contrast of it too, where he's doing stuff like bigger stuff like that, but also just the simplicity of like just helping a girl out by saving the cat out of the tree.
I love that scene. I love that little touch where he does
Yeah,
like, so he saves a plane from crashing,
yeah.
but then, they show him like rescuing a cat from a tree. Like shit
Exactly.
like that's Superman. That's
That's
fucking Superman right there.
treats every job he does, no matter the severity or the importance of it, the exact same. The suit, obviously, you mentioned, which is it's very corny now because it's sort of like, but it just works. It works for the context of this movie,
I
which
love
is
it.
great.
I
Yeah,
love it.
it
It's
is
great.
good. Um, an interesting thing too, which I just remembered about, is that tried to continue this universe back in, I think it was the early 2000s with Superman Returns, which have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, but no, I've never seen it.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because that's sort of just a continuation of this, which I think was meant to be sort of a direct sequel to this one.
I thought the direct sequel was Superman 2.
Yeah, that's it. I don't. This is the thing. I don't know if a lot of people obviously don't take to the sequels very well. So I think they just tried to
Kind of like
revamp
retconned
to,
it.
yeah, almost, which
Yeah.
I think they're doing a lot with, which is very before its time because they're doing that with a lot of movies nowadays anyway. Yeah, but also like just like there's so many fun little touches that you don't really get in a Superman movie anymore. Like there's a lot of like sort of really hilarious, intentionally hilarious reaction shots from New Yorkers. There's that, like for instance, that guy selling like just fruit on the side of the
Yeah, the
street, and
tomato guy.
he's like, get them while they're hot and all that sort of shit. There's like classic New York.
The one guy tries to steal like one. He's like, "Get back here!" I love that. I love fucking Metropolis, just New York. I love when they do that. I'm
Yeah, of
sorry.
course.
Like Gotham City in the Dark Knight is just Chicago.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever. I love that. It's so campy.
Yeah, it's really fun.
So cool.
Yeah. The actual like but it's also not afraid to sort of like go to, when it needs to, of course, like more grisly aspects of like the sort of villainous aspects of the movie too. Like that whole sequence where the guys are trying to figure out where Lex's lair is, and that like secret door pushes him straight out into the train tracks and just gets crushed by the train is really great.
Yeah.
Um the whole helicopter action set piece, it's
Oh, that
really
was great.
great. That's handled well with that. Like,
I really loved. Well, you just mentioned the final set piece with the special effects, the miniature uh like sets they built.
yeah,
So they just flooded them with water,
yeah,
and it honestly really holds up. Like, of course, I noticed, but I thought it was great. It just added to the overall charm of the movie. I really
exactly.
liked it.
Very well put. Yeah, you can clearly tell it is a miniature, but it just adds to like sort of the cuteness of the movie itself. But yeah, that's the thing. Like you can totally picture an edited down like almost 90-minute cut of this thing. But I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they add all those
Yeah,
personal touches between the characters. Like there's a lot of stuff obviously spent with Clark's Earth parents, Ma and Pa Kent,
Yeah.
which is really great. That whole sequence too, where they just find him crashed out into the field and he lifts up the truck, which is really great.
Really cool.
Him running alongside the train, which is really fun. Yeah, especially on this rewatch, I really gravitated towards all the Smallville Clark Kent stuff, which I wasn't expecting.
I loved it, dude. I love the heart that the entire like Smallville section had. His little, even though he didn't have much screen time,
Hmm.
his interactions with Pa Kent, that little talk they have just before he has his heart attack about like like you have a purpose to be here. You have a reason. It's not scoring touchdowns, but you have a reason. You have a purpose to be here. I really
Yes.
like that. Even though he immediately died afterwards, uh,
Immediately
I
comes
really,
up.
I
Yeah.
really like that scene a lot. Just
Yeah.
the Smallville stuff, even though short, had a lot of heart to it.
It is
I really
short,
liked
but
it.
yeah, they pack the most into that, and that's great, as you mentioned. Yeah, all the Pa Kent stuff, and that's reverberated back when he thinks Lois is dead, and that's a really powerful image too of him just
Yeah,
screaming and flying up into the sky, and you get those voices from his past. So
that scene was so fucking cool. I was like, so, so I thought like Lois was gonna wake up, like
right,
jolt awake, like okay, oh she's alive, and then like they were taking a bit too long. I'm like, oh shit, is she like actually dead?
yeah, they just
And she
hold on it.
was,
Yeah, it's kind of
and
insane.
I'm like, literally, what the fuck? I know there's 4 more of these,
Mhm.
so like, like what are they gonna do?
You're right.
And then he just spins. When I like caught on to what he was doing, I was like, no fucking way. Like nowadays, you don't get a set piece that cool. You don't
No,
get that shit. Like the superhero spins Earth back
yeah,
to fucking bring back time. Like movies don't do that anymore. People can't suspend their disbelief that much anymore to the point. Like it's always like, they have to be, I think superhero movies nowadays kind of like are scared of being this whimsical and this
oh,
comic booky,
you're exactly
so you
right.
don't get shit like this anymore. So that's why like holy shit, right? Why didn't I think about that? Just spin Earth back and bring it
Exactly,
back.
yeah.
Like
But and
amazing stuff, amazing stuff.
of course it is silly, but it just works too for this
It
movie.
works, man. It makes sense. It's Superman. Come
It's
on.
Superman, and it's this version of Superman too, in particular, where it's just so, as you said, it's just whimsical and it's wholesome, and I think it's why a lot of people gravitate towards, including myself, those Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Is you can only imagine they
Yes,
took a lot of
same
inspiration
reason.
for this.
Same reason, exactly. It's just this amazing genre of like really hopeful
Really
2000s.
hopeful.
Well, this is the 2000s, but like it has that like homely feeling
Yep.
superhero movie. I don't know. They really don't make this is truly like they don't make them like this anymore.
No, barely any cynicism. Um,
This
Obviously
is so cool.
the effects in this movie, as we've mentioned briefly, you can take them or leave them. They're of their time. What I was really impressed with was
Yeah,
a lot of the in-camera stuff. For instance, that sequence where like young Clark Kent is quite frustrated and just boots that football um into the fucking sky,
yeah.
which was done in camera too. They just had like an air cannon under that actor and they actually fired a football that far, which is
Oh,
really
really?
impressive. Yeah, so that's all that
That's
stuff's
so
really
cool.
impressive. Yeah. Um but yeah, like all the
And
flying stuff you can take or leave because it's yeah.
I loved how like all the Krypton stuff looked,
Mhm.
especially the Fortress of Solitude. I
Yeah.
think it looked great. Like this like brutal because you have different interpretations of Krypton.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, in Birthright, if I remember the panels correctly, it was kind of like this sprawling alien metropolis with like a lot of like it was kind of like a futuristic New Yorkish. I think it was. I don't know if I'm mixing it up with the comics, but it was like this more lively version of Krypton, and then
Mhm.
you have this where it's like this cold, just like crystal planet
But
with
yeah.
like very weird, like you said, like Star Wars, kind of like little. I don't know, but it's really cool. And then the Fortress of Solitude, how they put the crystals in and they
I
touch the
love the
crystals and how
crystals. Yeah.
everything was there. And I really really like that. I loved it.
I loved all those
Super cool
close-ups
stuff.
too. Yeah, I loved all those close-ups too of when Krypton was getting destroyed, and you get those close-ups of the shards of those crystals just like going straight
Yeah,
through the walls, which is really awesome looking.
So cool, man.
Obviously the score, which we've mentioned briefly, the great John Williams, just one of the most iconic scores in like film history. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
this is it. It just stands out. I like too the fact that despite it's like a Superman movie, I don't know how, I didn't look into this enough. I don't know how comic book fans in particular would have reacted to this at the time, but to a Superman movie, there's not a whole bunch of fighting in it. I guess like obviously if this exact movie was made right now, a lot of people would sort of move away from that because that's a lot of what the general audiences gravitate towards. But like when there's like you get the first meeting between Lex and Superman, and there's like it's just pure dialogue, just witty dialogue
Yeah.
towards one another, which is great. I love that whole scene where
Yeah.
Superman breaks down the door to his lair, and Lex pretty much says, "Come on in, it's open." Which is really fun.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people nowadays would just expect like, Lex in a big green mech suit.
Yes,
and
that's
a lot
what
of
you get now.
CGI
Yeah.
And all of that. But here's just like some good old dialogue in a New York underground base.
Yeah.
Talk about real estate.
Talking about real estate.
And it works. It works. It just does. I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you get that tense little sequence where they tie the kryptonite around his neck and he's drowning.
Yeah.
Which is really great. You get that tense moment where is it Lex's like girlfriend? He's like, you gotta promise to save my mother first before like Lex unleashes his giant grand plan.
Yeah, okay.
It's like all that stuff's really fun. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff too which just put the biggest smile on my face of Lex setting up his grand plan, which reminded me just a lot of like a Looney Tunes cartoon where he's got his girlfriend in the cartoonishly red dress distracting the army guys and he's like stealing the bomb, whatever it is. All that stuff's really great.
Yeah. So I really hope Gunn, does his homework and we get a really good comic booky Superman movie. I'm definitely going to try to read many more comics up until the movie. Probably watch Man of Steel. But yeah. Please make a good movie, Shane.
Yes, absolutely.
So, if you're listening to this, James Gunn,
don't fuck it up.
Please make a good Superman movie. Fuck it up.
I was gonna say, should we probably start pivoting towards final thoughts?
Yeah, sure.
Final thoughts for Superman from 1978. Balta, the stage is yours.
Well, dude, I honestly loved it. I came in with, like, being honest, I came in with like kind of like low expectations. Just like, okay, cool little campy Superman movie for the 80s. And then I came out of it like, holy shit, that was probably like top 5 or even 10 like best comic book movies I've ever seen. Just full of hope, like wholesomeness. Just I loved it. So much charm, so many good performances, so well directed. I don't know. I really, really liked it, and it made me fall in love with Superman way more than I already did. So I'm really glad that I saw it, because if it wasn't for this cast, I don't think I've ever saw it. I'd ever see it, but I loved it. Honestly, amazing movie. I'm gonna definitely recommend it to a lot more people now.
Oh, that's phenomenal to hear, man. Yeah, for me, I forgot how, because it has been a couple of years since I've seen it. I forgot how like lofty and thematic it can get in places, which is just adds to it. Like I forgot about the whole sort of stage play, literal comic book-esque prologue it has of the actual Action Comics at the start in the black and white, which is very cool. A lot of the great Gene Hackman line deliveries is great. When Superman comes into his own, he's like, "Can you please take the gentleman's cape?" sort of thing, as if it was to act for a coat, which is really fun. Obviously, Christopher Reeve is just fantastic, and a lot of his dialogue is just very cute and sweet. As we mentioned before, it's just very sort of golden retriever energy, as he's like, "I'm here to fight truth, justice, and for the American way." And Lois Lane gets that great line where she's like, "You have to fight like every elected official in the country then," which is really funny.
So good.
Yeah, so I think like all in all, this is just like not only just like one of the most fun comic book movies you could ask for, it's just like a fun sort of summer blockbuster in general.
Yeah, definitely. It holds up extremely well. Absolutely well.
So, with that was Superman from 1978. Now, our job here, Balta, Have we thought of any sort of connecting tissue on why these two movies would make a good double feature?
I could, well, I took some time. I'm kind of grasping at straws here because it's really
No,
hard
that's your job.
to
That's it. Grasp at straws,
to
please.
put connections between Michael Mann's Heat and Superman. But honestly, one of the things that came to mind is just overall the theme of like isolation, maybe. We were talking
Okay.
about how Neil's character is completely alone. I also Hannah's kind of, he has a wife and a stepdaughter, but it's still like, he's at his best when he's doing his thing. They're
Yep.
both at their best when they're doing their thing. So I was like, okay. So Superman, you have, it's literally called the Fortress of Solitude.
Mhm.
It's so, bro, when he's Superman, he kind of doesn't have anybody there. So, I kind of like thought about that a bit. Maybe some of the duality, identity themes, with like Clark Kent, Superman, and then you have like, for example, Neil and Heat
Mhm.
having this kind of like double identity thing with him and his girlfriend, hiding who he really is. But honestly, maybe aside from that, uh, I really like. Oh, this one. I really like how they both kind of had their respective cities as characters. Maybe
Good
like
point. Yeah,
how
yeah, yeah.
the way Mann shoots L.A. and the way Donner treats Metropolis. Well, it's pretty much New York, but it's still we're talking about the merchant, the cops
Mhm.
at the police station when they get delivered the boat, and the little girl and her cat,
Mhm.
the robber in the alleyway. It felt very real. They both feel like extremely real places.
Yes.
And honestly, I much rather have that than like a big like CGI city.
Right.
Honestly, like I don't mind it at all when it's just like New York, but
The
you can feel
location
it.
as a character.
It's real.
Yeah.
It's tangible. Same goes for Heat.
Yeah.
The gunfights in the middle of the streets, the civilians, the way Mann shoots the LA like skyline. I don't know. I could go on for hours talking about Heat again, so I'm not gonna get there. But
Uh,
that's just kind of like some of what I got, honestly.
yeah.
Just some notes. But I mean, honestly, if you need an excuse to do a double feature with these two movies, they're both incredible.
Yeah.
They're both really
Yeah.
good. They both show polar opposite sides of humanity, but
Yep.
it's got to give you a little bit of whiplash. But dude, just both incredible, incredible movies.
Absolutely. No, you took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. I was gonna say the same comparisons. But yeah, I think they both very perfectly handle the two sides of the two movies both handle the same side of like the locked in individualism of all these characters, where Neil and Hannah are locked into their profession, robbing banks, catching bank robbers, whereas Superman is locked into the ideology of saving people. So I think
Exactly. Yeah.
so I think beyond anything, comparing Michael Mann's Heat to Donna's Superman, I think we've done all right on comparing the two. Pretty good
Yeah.
for what we're
I
working
think we
with.
did a pretty good job.
I think we
Yeah.
did all right. No, but that's it. I want to thank you, man. Thank you, Balta, for coming on and joining me on my very first episode of No Intermissions. It's been an absolute pleasure, man.
Honestly, man, thank you for having me. It's been more than an honor. I've had a
Ah,
complete blast talking about these two incredible movies with you, and I'm
thank you, man.
really, really glad to have been part of this.
Oh, thank you, man. Just before we go, this is the time I'm going to give my guests to plug anything they want to plug. So the stage is yours, man. Go for it.
Honestly, I have a Twitter. I tweet a lot of things about a lot of stuff, mostly movies. It's at B. It's also really weird because it was a code name, so my IRLs couldn't find me, but they found me. So now it's just a really weird at. But it's BGARCN2. That's gonna be it. It's also two because technically it's my second account, but it's like my fourth. Don't tell anybody.
Aha.
But it's that. Um, I have a letter. I forgot my letterbox handle. Shit, doesn't matter.
That's
It's
okay.
all
I'm gonna
there
put it
on
all in the
Twitter.
bio. You can send
It's
it to
all
me
on the
after.
Twitter.
Yeah,
So
it's all
go
in the
there.
Twitter. I'll put it all in the bio anyway, so you can just click the link and follow this
Uh,
lovely man.
yeah, I'm probably gonna tweet a lot about Heat now because I'm thinking about it
He's all
now.
heat.
But
He's all hopped up on heat.
dude,
Fantastic.
yeah.
No, I'm right there with you.
But yeah,
That's it.
that'd be probably it.
Beautiful. No, and thank you everyone for listening. And you've heard it here first. So we'll see you all next time.